I'm not sure about you, but I feel that there's a wall that is separating me from my government. You know, we think historically about communism as being a government of secrecy and bureaucracy and unwielding rigidity. Some years ago, to end communism, we demanded tear down the wall. We said there had to be openness and change. Well, speaking for me, our government has a wall between the government and the American people. There's secrecy and bureaucracy and stuff that's going on. And a lot of us feel fairly powerless to do much about it. Quite honestly, I wonder if the elected officials don't feel powerless to do much about it. Here's my point. To end communism, we demanded tear down the wall. With our government, right now, we ought to demand tear down the wall. Now, the all-important question that this raises is how? Let's talk about that a minute. Some of us believe that documentaries are the way to go. Documentaries empower the people of the United States to be a government of the people and by the people and for the people. My family and I recently saw a documentary. The title of it was Waiting for Superman. It cut across all of the parties and ideologies, and you know, it's created a buzz in our country. This documentary has neighbors talking to one another about, you know, we can do something about our educational system. It's these documentaries that are the crux of tearing down the wall between us and our government. We tore down the wall of one rigid government. Today it's time to use documentaries to tear down the wall of our government. Let me say that again, because that's the point I'm trying to make. We tore down the walls of one government. Today, it's time to use documentaries to tear down the wall between us and our government. How to do it? How to do it is with documentaries. We want to continue now to show you how to do that, in our opinion.
We will now walk through a presentation showing our government leaders and the American people how we are going to open up our government using movie documentaries and including Americans in the process. So let us begin our presentation. The big question is how. We have a picture of the Titanic sinking, that is the U.S. The big question we want to tackle today is how to cut the federal budget, and the how is the most important. How do we cut our federal budget? Americans thought in this day of the internet, certainly we could be smarter with our government spending. Well, that day has arrived. Here is a motivational movie on the all-important word how. Please watch at the link below of the importance of the word how.
Because of one word, imagination and reality have merged. Because of one word, a new generation, a fifth generation of fighter aircraft has been born. Because of one word, America's air dominance for the next 40 years is assured.
If we can make a stealth fighter, we can certainly cut our federal budget. However, just like the movie showed, it takes the all-important word how. So step number one, We want to have a tear down the wall speech. Representative Boehner, you must go in this direction, or our milquetoast, careful, do-nothing government will destroy our country as we know it. Serving the number one customers, the American people, is the way for the conservative movement to be the movement of the future. Be a leader, not a lawyer. Leaders must set the tone as Reagan did, with government is not the solution to our problems, government is the problem. We helped tear down the wall of communism. Now our own government has its secret spending, unwieldy rigidity, powerless politicians, and its incapability to rein in spending and cut government. We must tear down another wall in the world, and this time it's ours. Leaders, government leaders, prove to yourselves and colleagues the power of movie documentaries. Have one day where the freshman Congress get together and watch the movie Waiting for Superman with regards to overhauling our educational system. Once you've watched it, you'll understand that it is perhaps a 80 to 99%er where all Americans who see it are for overhauling education. It is this power of movie documentaries that will demand political change. Step number 2. We must create a sense of urgency. Government leaders, you must create a sense of urgency in our country. The U.S. is the sinking Titanic. What must we absolutely have from our government spending to take to the lifeboats for our children? Everything else, get rid of. And now step 3. We want to ID our federal spending into categories. This is a bar chart in descending order, also called a Pareto chart. It's the old 80-20 rule. Your top 20% of your spending accounts for 80% of your spending. So we must look at our top spending. Movie documentaries and website on each bar of government spending. Open up the government spending to Americans. So, with Social Security, we're going to take a look at this bar with the American people for 3 to 4 months. Look at where we can cut, and then move on. Defense, Medicare, things like skilled nursing facilities where they use occupational therapists to do upper extremities when someone has done a knee or a total hip replacement. That's billions of dollars being wasted there in Medicare, and there's thousands of other wastes in Medicare. Americans looking at this one, and we'll go on down here. I like these categories in the way they're broken up because they really show a lot of the meat of unemployment benefits. Of course, are going to go much higher this year. Here's our net interest, veterans benefits, and then here's a thing that I think Americans will have a little bit of a problem with: federal retirement and disability. $120 billion. See, the reason why we haven't seen this too much is because it's hidden in all the little departments of government. But with these categories, we can see much more clearly how our money's being spent, and $120 billion for federal retirement and disability is just ludicrous, and we need to look at pretty much eliminating that. Going on down the line, we want movie documentaries on all of these things, including way down here is our good old postal service. We want a documentary of that postal service because we all have said there's no way they're running that above board, and it's not costing the taxpayers a dime. Well, you can already see they spend $1 billion, but soon we're going to have a movie documentary exposing all the details about the Postal Service, so we'll all understand that. Finally, not that it's a priority, but it'll just be very enlightening for us all to know how this post office monstrosity works and all the details with that. So I encourage you to go to the website entitlementman.com. That's entitlementman.com, and go to the forums and read at some of the other crazy spending we're doing in these areas, and encourage you to do your own research and also write up in the forums. So this is a very good slide because this shows how we as Americans and the government are going to take on our spending, and it's going to be in spending order sequence. Step number 4, Americans' government website. We will have movie documentaries and information tools. Movie documentaries to include a sense of urgency like the sinking Titanic. Cut all that can't be put into the lifeboats. Is the spending constitutional? Cost, benefit, and other facts of deliverables. Since we're heading for bankruptcy for our children, what can we do without? Delete non-critical deliverables. We are America. We can and must cut huge parts of government. Options for privatization of critical deliverables. Finally, several big picture spending cut options, all the way from 100% elimination of spending of a category to 25% cuts. And the website that we put up, that is, that the government will put up, will show many different spending cut options, just like the documentaries will. Americans' government cutting website to include, again, the movie documentaries. You can watch them online or at the movie theaters. You may watch a 15-minute short on the website. Possible spending cut options may have data to support elimination of entire Department of Education for a savings of, say, $56 billion. May make the pitch for charter schools and to do away with much of the bureaucracy for a total spending of $38 billion versus $108 billion for education. The movie documentaries and website information go hand in hand. The same information, just more details on the website. Additional info and tools on the website. Additional cuts and savings shown. Website similar to a website called entitlementman.com. Americans can do surveys on spending cuts, share additional ideas for spending cuts, and information sharing. Spending and deliverables. Chunk together deliverables and spending so Americans can cut. For example, with Social Security, the top deliverable, Social Security spending can be chunked together from the top spending down to, say, a fourth level of spending, just like our bar graph did before, following the old 80-20 rule of Pareto charts. So, for example, with Social Security, category of spending number 1 is listed here. The second deliverable by dollars spent would be the category of spending number 2 in Social Security. And then third deliverable by dollars spent, Social Security category of spending number 3, and then so on. And then under each category, we can have on the website the top sub-deliverable money spent for Social Security category of spending number 1, subcategory number 1. and then so on. This would be subcategory number 2, subcategory number 3, and so on. So all we're doing is breaking things down in spending order sequence and chunking them in deliverables so that we can talk about, hey, let's cut this one, here's how much we save. And now we're going to introduce you to a very motivating video of the power of a free American people. Wow, that was a very motivating movie about the power of the American people. Now let's continue on with the how of overhauling our government. Step number 5. Americans included in the process via a website. Americans will be educated through movie, documentaries, and website with a free flow of information. Americans are surveyed. They make suggestions. They express opinions. More sophisticated polling can be done outside the website for voter opinion. See entitlementman.com forum for ideas of cuts. Many ideas will be 70 to 99 percenters. That is, 70 to 99% of Americans will agree to cut the spending because federal spending bills get crazy, where government leaders do not read bills, have earmarks, pet projects, riders on bills, and other ludicrous spending. Americans will sniff out the waste. Here is a chart of the information sharing. The government will have private enterprise do these movie documentaries, such as the one that was done by Davis Guggenheim for Waiting for Superman, talking about overhauling our educational system. So here, this side of the chart is provided, is spent. Say for example we make 27 documentaries for each bar on our graph of spending. Those 27 documentaries will show us exactly our spending and our deliverables. The federal government spending information in layman's terms at the website. The documentaries made by the private sector for each bar in our spending chart, like the documentary Waiting on Superman for Education, cuts across all ideological and party lines. Number 2, that the government will provide through private contractors simple layman's terms of spending and deliverables, so that we all Americans can watch the documentaries, understand where our spending's going, and then we'll come over here, have a website of the documentaries and the information sharing, and then Americans are included in the process. American people are educated on how their dollars are being spent, and then Americans take surveys, make suggestions, express opinions. So basically we have the government side of things sharing information, and then Americans helping out and sniffing out all the waste. What this creates down here in the customers of the American people, it creates the political will and Americans demanding cuts and the political will for change. So this is a very key chart for what we're proposing the government does to open it up to Americans and tear down the walls that are currently Americans aren't entered into the process of government. And what are the keys? Leadership. Leadership is required to talk up the website daily, enlightening Americans on how their money is being spent in layman's terms. Americans become part of the process. Finally, Americans have a process when this is implemented to be a part of the system. And we need a sense of urgency and patriotism. What must we absolutely have to take to the lifeboats for our children? Everything else get rid of. If we cannot make cuts in our government, we are not a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Step number 6. This is a bar chart of our spending and what we envision when the correct leadership is given to our spending in priority order. Americans will be participating in the millions. They'll focus on each category of spending for 1 to 3 months. Since our top bar on our spending is Social Security, that means we'll be looking at Social Security for 1 to 3 months as a nation. The time periods may overlap a bit. This has all Americans making their voices heard instead of just interest groups. This must be something we do as an entire country. So here we have Social Security. We will have, for example, if championed right by the government leadership, Boehner, freshman congressman, so forth, we'll have 90 million Americans voting cuts, taking surveys, giving ideas. And then after we've looked at Social Security for, say, up to 3 or 4 months, then we can move on to our second highest spending, defense. We might have 50 million Americans giving their cut on defense. What can be cut, what can't, on and on. We'll probably locate a lot more waste, like the $300 toilet seats or whatever, but we need to share that information with the American people, have the American people go through it, and we're going to save billions and billions of dollars. The third highest spending that we do is in Medicare. So we need to get 90 million Americans, or roughly get a lot of Americans after Medicare, making ideas, making suggestions. The documentaries will be making suggestions, and Americans can talk about Medicare and how we're going to cut it. Social Security, or SSI, disability and welfare. We'll scrutinize this. We'll get many millions of Americans giving ideas. People that work inside the government will be able to identify huge areas of waste. So this is what we're looking to do, is simply take our spending in priority order and having Americans be part of the process and start to fix these things, as opposed to having powerless politicians and our country continually going bankrupt. Step number 7, begin talks of cutting with Americans' input. Government leadership will start with a few of the easier cuts for Americans, that is, the low-hanging fruit. Perhaps the 70 to 99%ers, that is, 70 to 99% of Americans will agree to cut this spending, because federal spending bills get crazy, where the government leaders do not read bills, have earmarks, pet projects, unrelated riders, and other ludicrous spending. Americans will sniff out the waste. There's no way our politicians can identify where all the waste is. But Americans will be able to help that, because you'll have millions of Americans looking over the information and making suggestions. We want to take things in priority order so that our whole country is focused on each as we look at cutting. Kind of like this slide right here. We want to take things in order, because these are the biggest bangs for the buck. This is where we're spending $721 billion. This is where we're spending $719 billion. This is where we're spending about $450 billion, and so on. So, take things in priority order so that our whole country is focused on each as we look at cutting. We will champion each area of spending so all Americans can focus on cuts. Remember again the 80-20 rule. Again, perhaps take 1 to 3 months or more on each bar of our spending chart. 1 to 3 months on Social Security, 1 to 3 months on defense, 1 to 3 months on Medicare, and so on down the chart. We will work on cutting spending with the American people step by step in the media and on the website with documentaries and other information. While we're fixing things for our government, let's demand one bill, one topic, and no riders or any other nonsense added to these bills. While we're shaking things up to have Americans sniff out all our government's wasteful spending, let's demand one bill, one topic with no riders. This done so Congress must not always rely on America to sniff out all the waste from now till eternity. Government, it's time to fix the processes. The beginning of the end of government as we know it. More than just balancing our budget, as our government puts in layman's terms everything it does and our spending, Americans will recreate its government with the right processes and incentives for government to work correctly for the number one customers, the American citizenry. Here's something from a book called 40 Years, 20 Million Ideas, a Toyota Suggestion System. It's at Toyota on average where 90% of the workers submit one idea per week. Guess what the implementation rate is on those workers submitting one idea per week? It's 99%. 99% of their ideas are implemented. That's just unheard of. Do you think Toyotas are improving daily? Definitely. That's why a lot of us drive them. Let's get our government improving daily with a suggestion system and opening up the government to all Americans. Americans want to be a part of the process, but we have to give them one first. So basically what we're saying here is, government, we need a suggestion system. Look how awesome Toyota's suggestion system is. We need that in America for our government so that we can be improving our government daily. So what's the future for opening up our government on the internet with movie documentaries and all information to Americans? I think you're going to see a lot of these topics be 70 to 99%ers, where it cuts across all ideologies, and people will vote for or do surveys of one bill, one topic, term limits for Congress, tort reform, privatize most all of government, systems and processes inside government will be overhauled. We can have our Congress put in timesheets of what all they did each day so we Americans can give our input for improvement. Fraternization with interns will be against the law and have consequences. In Lincoln's words, we are about to be truly a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. What else do we have to look forward to with the proper leadership? We will have more videos which will help guide us to our new government's future. We are going from a democracy led by our representatives to a customer-driven democracy leading our representatives. This will be a model for reshaping all forms of government in states, counties, and cities in the U.S. and possibly around the world. This is a never-ending process that continually improves government processes for its citizenry. Here is just a fun one I added that most Americans I think will agree to. Rename all structures with Congress people's names on them. It's the arrogance of politicians is over. It's time that Americans are now number one. We don't need structures named by our public servants, our Congress people. So let's get some of those structures, let's get all the structures renamed. Leaders, there's a key to all this, and the answer to the media. When the media picks at governmental leaders trying to get information and causing mayhem, say we cannot answer for the American people. We will give our customers, the American people, the information in the form of movie documentaries, encourage them to express their opinions of the direction to go, and then we will deliver. We cannot speak for our customers, only listen to what they want and then deliver. See the website at whatever website we deem that is going to be. And we encourage you to watch the documentaries at the website or the 15-minute summary of it. See the website for a summary of governmental numbers and deliverables. We encourage you, the media, and the American people to go to the website and participate in cutting our government spending. One last motivating thought: we must have leadership, patriotism, resolve, and guts. We must rise above our apathetic day-by-day humdrum. We must rise up as a nation and work together daily on the website and in the media. Government leaders, you are the ones that must be talking the website and documentaries up daily. Then it will get talked about in the media, and then we can have lots of good things going on. If we cannot overhaul and tear down our walls of government, are we not weaker than a communist government? The Russians tore down their walls and are going in a good direction. Can we not tear down our own walls and be perhaps stronger than a communist government? I think we can. Come on, government leaders, with Americans' help, you can tear down the walls and overhaul our government. You must. Our children and grandchildren and the future of America depends on it. And here we have the credits. I want to encourage you in the meantime, until the government leaders get this going, I want to encourage you to go to a website called entitlementman.com. That's entitlementman.com. I want to encourage everybody to go to the forums of the website at Entitlement Man and start cutting. Look at some of the cuts made already and add your own ideas for cuts. Thank you very much, and God bless America.